Hey everybody, it's my first show back after doing the Ride for the Brave with Save the Brave and Scott Husing. We've got a return guest. If you guys recall, Andrew Bernstein he is a podcast producer. He's also an NBA Hall of Famer. He is the Hall of Fame photographer for all basketball games in the NBA. So he has a unique connection to the NBA, and I really enjoyed our last chat with him. We found out that he's also the brother of Frenchie from Greece. That was kind of a fun fact pull up. He actually worked on a book with, well, the world has been such a different place until recently, but he worked on a book with Kobe Bryant. And, I don't know, maybe about a year ago, he did this book called Mamba Mentality. I'm going to pull a link up here. Mamba Mentality, How I Play. And it took Andrew's pictures and then Kobe's text and put together this beautiful book. It's almost like a coffee table book, but it's more than that because the words in themselves are pretty fantastic. So Andrew's going to join us here in a moment. It'll just be a few minutes before he pops in. So I just thought I would catch up with you all for a few minutes and just kind of check in on the Ride for the Brave. If you haven't listened to, we have a full recap in the show. If you go over to the show queue, you should see two shows back. It's like a 2-hour long recap of what we did. I'm recording, by the way, in Phil Green's backyard, so the lighting isn't great, but I think we'll work through it. And if you're listening on the podcast side, Andrew Bernstein, if you look at episode, I think it's 382, you can hear that episode. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So, so Kobe Bryant was obviously a legend in basketball, and Andrew has relationships with all of these guys because he's been the photographer for decades for the NBA. And his show, his main podcast is called Legend of Sports, and he's got a whole litany of incredible guests, but he also has this new project that sits within the Legends of Sport podcast. And it's, he basically is going to chronicle what's going on within the NBA bubble. The NBA bubble is their COVID protective measures they're going to implement to keep teams protected as they try to play through a season. Obviously the folks at the Major League Baseball are trying the same thing and trying to see if they can get through a season of 60 games. And so the NBA is going, I guess you would even say even more restrictive, because all of the players are gathering in one place, and this bubble will, for the most part, be very inclusive of only the NBA players. But of course, there'll be hotel staff and there'll be NBA executives that have to travel outside the bubble. But that's the idea. And Andrew's got unique access inside of that. So if you go to, and I'll pull up the link here, if you go to his Legends of Sport podcast on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get podcasts, it'll be available. You can listen to the shows as he does them. He's already sort of launched the initial things. He'll be going soon, I think in 2 weeks, I think it is, that he takes off for Florida for the bubble, and he'll be talking to the legends, the greatest people available in basketball. Because he's a Hall of Famer, because everybody there knows him. He's the kind of guy. Here's an idea of who is in the show in general: Magic Johnson, Tony Hawk, Hope Solo, Pau Gasol. These are all just giants in sports, and so you have access to like really unique inside access with Andrew's connections within the NBA, because he'll be there not only taking pictures, but also doing podcasts. So it'll be a fantastic look at that life, at that experience. Okay, let me check my notes here real quick. Trying to work on Andrew's coming. It's just a matter of getting everything dialed in here real fast. So let me back up and talk a little bit about the Ride for the Brave. So Scott Husing and I drove across 9 states: California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Atlanta, and South Carolina, and then back. We did all this because his friend David White killed himself. He's a veteran. He drank himself to death, and Scott was giving the eulogy. So the main thing to know about all of this is that we did it for Save the Brave. Of course, you guys all know that Save the Brave is my charity, and Scott is the executive director. Nick Velez is the president, and we all work with a whole bunch of us on trying to reduce the scourge of veteran suicide via PTSD. So that's why we do that. We raised so far, I don't know, almost $25,000 all in, and we're also auctioning off a rifle that was made by Eric Hicks. And so if you're interested in that, you can definitely email me at p@breakitdownshow.com, and I'll get you the details on how to bid and get your tickets on to be eligible for the raffle. We're going to sell a limited amount of tickets, and it'll be, I don't know, $100, something like that, maybe $200 a ticket for the gun. It's like a $5,000 gun, so it's pretty cool, and it's custom. It's got some Echo Ramadi features on. It's got Scott's signature, that kind of thing. It's pretty neat. So that's that. One of the things we found out is here comes Andy. So I'll shut up and let Andy do some talking here. Hold on one second.
What the hell is going on? But it wasn't working.
Hey man, how are you?
I'm sorry, man. I'm usually pretty Johnny on the spot with this stuff, but anyway, good.
Hey, well,
thanks.
I'm scrambling. I'm in Phil's backyard, so I don't know what I'm doing either.
Where
I've
are
got
you?
This cube. I'm in outside of Temecula in Winchester, and I've got this cube light trying to put some light on my face, but it's not working very good.
Hold on, you just reminded me. I got to turn mine on.
Yeah, this thing is doing nothing.
Well, but you're looking pretty handy, you say. I like that hat. What is that hat from?
It's a company that does augmented reality training for fighter pilots. They put like an augmented reality airplane in the air while you fly around in the actual air. So sort of like a real life simulator. Pretty neat.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's start off. Just give you the standard intro that we do around here. Just say, hey, this is Andrew Bernstein, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Hey, this is Andrew D. Bernstein, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yeah, I was giving the audience a little shot of what you're doing. And first off, look, you're a Hall of Famer. Every basketball picture we see of the NBA, it's like it's your work. And thank you for all of that, because I can just, there's a Rolodex of pictures flying by my head, people flying in for dunks, all those incredible shots. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for coming back on the show. And I was listening to your podcast as I was preparing, and I love this idea of podcasting from within the NBA bubble. It's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I go down there, and the clock's ticking here, like 16 days or 15 days, something like that. Got to quarantine for a week, which should be interesting because I can't do anything for 7 days in one room, but we'll figure it out. And then I'll be podcasting from there. So we're continuing our series that we started with this Restarting the Clock series, 16 weeks of basically restarting the NBA and WNBA seasons, and partnering now with the LA Times, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. The LA Times partnership really helps out. Are you going to travel alone, or are you going to bring someone with you?
No, I'm going by myself. We have a crew. They has sent 3 different crews down there, basically. So the first wave were photographers, like 3 or 4 photographers who documented the preparation and getting ready for this thing. And then the players arriving at the beginning of July 7th through 9th is when the players and teams arrived. And then the initial practices and scrimmages, and now these, what we're calling the seeding games, these 8 games that will determine the seeding for the playoffs. And then the second wave is, I guess, kind of filtering in, and I'm in the third wave, which will come in basically from the second round, end of the second round, I guess, through the finals. So that's it. If it goes to this, it could be a 7-week trip.
That's a long time. Have you lived in a hotel room for 7 weeks before?
Well, if you don't count the time I was in jail, no, I'm kidding. That's a joke. No, I've been in hotel rooms. Let's see, the Olympics go, 2.5, 3 weeks. Olympic training, the USA training camp, a few other times I think I can remember, but never longer than maybe 3 weeks at the most.
Yeah, it's a long time. What's your plan for keeping your sanity to do something that long?
Well, it's funny. I'm bringing, as we speak, I'm assembling all of these random hard drives I have all over the place, and I'm going to literally go through every single hard drive and kind of narrow it down, bring blank one, and just kind of put everything in one place. I have podcasts that we're planning and that I have to do research on. There are books I have to read for guests. Um, I need a little downtime, quite frankly. I mean, it sounds funny in the pandemic, but I am actually looking forward to some introspective time. Not necessarily like locked up, in a hermetically sealed hotel room, but that's kind of out of my control.
What's your level of, anxiety about having to go and try this? I mean, we're seeing,
Yeah.
baseball struggle to stay open. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not feeling good about baseball, quite honestly. I mean, as we record this, more and more players are opting out and games getting canceled. I feel for the sport and some very, very good friends who work in the sport, and it's a shame. I don't know how a sport could actually playing right now without being in a bubble situation. You have to have that control. And even in a bubble, there's stuff to worry about, that something come through the bubble that is unanticipated. But all that being said, the only thing really that I'm nervous about is the actual getting there part, is like getting to LAX, getting on an airplane, getting off an airplane, and that's it. But my wife bought me like a hazmat suit, and this is actually true. I'm not wearing a hazmat suit, but I do have the visor, and I got the triple insulated, filtered mask thing and the whole deal. And I'll just be, super careful. I'll pray a lot and hope that I can just get on and off that plane without any incident. But once I'm there, I'm not concerned. Honestly, I think the NBA has it so sealed up and so protected that I think we're better off there than anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, it does seem that of all the sports, they've had time to kind of put together the most comprehensive plan. But of course, I think the NHL tried that and they've already had their bubble pierced. So
yeah,
you just don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. These are strange times, uncharted waters for all of us. I think I have never known the NBA to just roll the dice and see what happens. They wouldn't have done this if they weren't supremely confident that they could get this thing and pull this thing off. And it depends on everybody, obeying the rules and doing what they're supposed to. And there are some X factors, of course, but I think they have protocols and control over that as well.
Yeah. So with everybody playing, is it one court or are there multiple courts within the bubble?
Yes, I understand that there are like 3 venues there that are all right next to each other on the Wide World of Sports complex. And I think by the time I get there, they'll be pared down to 2, if not 1. They have like one that's kind of, they call it the arena, which is an arena. It's not, Staples Center size arena, but it is a bona fide arena. So probably I'll get there at the tail end of be able to start working at the tail end of the second round. But they'll probably be using two venues, and it'll be down to 1, I would think, for the conference finals and final.
And then does that make your job easier, just focusing on less? I mean, you don't have 12 different venues to focus on.
Yeah, much easier. Realistically, we we'll be able to set up our whole setup of cameras, myself and my colleague Nat Butler, who's coming from the New York area, leave them up. I mean, that never happens, during playoffs. I mean, you literally go in, it's a 5-6 hour setup, do the game, you pull everything out, you go to the next city. Sometimes you have 2 games in a row where, God willing, there isn't an event or a tractor pull or a concert or something in between. But usually there is, quite frankly, because these arenas are very, very busy. And it's a major setup, and it's a major schlep of all the gear from one city to the next. And so taking that whole travel part out of it and the breakdown and setup multiple times, I think it's going to really help. It's going to help us stay fresh. And hopefully the photography will benefit from that. I hope, because it's a much more controlled atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other question I asked, in the first episode, you talked about how you set the whole rig up and everything, and how
Mhm.
it's pretty comprehensive. But does this on-site nature of this COVID-based basketball, does this give you a chance to kind of play around and maybe try some things that you couldn't do otherwise? Like, I mean, the stands are empty. Is there something that you're planning on doing with this extra space and access and time?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. I've been regularly chatting with my colleagues that are down there covering the games now, and yeah, we have the opportunity to, with approval, of course, to put cameras in, like you said, places that maybe we hadn't put them there before. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I always like to have a new challenge, and this is definitely a new challenge. It's going to be a little weird, I think, with no fans in the stands and stuff, but we're all in that together. So it's not
Yeah.
like, it's just us covering. It's the players and the coaches and everybody else.
I was thinking about the lack of fans, and kind of paralleling my musician friends and what they say, and that practice is the place where the most special things happen because they can take risks.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about basketball players, and the vast majority of the time when they play basketball, there aren't fans. Like
Mhm.
they play 5-on-5 all the time, and it's
Mhm.
just whoever's there in the gym with them. So I think
Yeah.
they'll adapt to that pretty well. And I wonder if we might see some things that are even more special just because they get into more of that kind of practice zone where they try something they might not have to try otherwise try in a game, just because they're in
Yeah.
that headspace maybe.
No, that's a great point. I remember very well the legendary Dream Team practices that happened with nobody watching, but honestly, probably the greatest basketball demonstration I'd ever seen in my life. And I think when you get to finals, that the home team feeds off the crowd so much, but they could play it in a vacuum in a bubble and still probably perform at the same level. I enjoy the energy of the crowd. All of us who cover these games enjoy that, and it's part of it, and kind of gets you, motor running and juiced up. But we don't have it, so we really are to play the hand we're dealt. And so far, I haven't read or heard or seen any of the guys really reacting to the fact that there really aren't any fans there.
Yeah, yeah. It's in my head. It seems like we can do cardboard cutouts. We've seen that now. The next step would be to put a speaker there, and then you could live stream to your speaker, like, "Come on, come on, Ricky."
Yeah, right. On the broadcast, they are piping in some sound.
Yeah.
I don't know if the players are hearing that in the arena. I don't think they are. But yeah, it's going to be fun to hear a lot of trash talking that you don't normally get to hear. And I enjoy that too. I love that. It takes me back to the early days of just nonstop trash talking. So that'll be fun.
Well, do you know, are the announcers going to be on site? Or are they going to do like the other sports and be remote?
Yeah, the announcers for TNT and ESPN, ABC will be on site, but they're not on the court. Just like we're not on the court, we are off the court. The announcers will be removed from the court as well, which is a different experience for them too. Like I was talking to Mike Bree on my podcast, and he was just about to get down there, and I want to follow up with him and see how that went. But like Chick Hearn spent his whole career broadcasting from, as he used to say, high on the western sideline.
Yeah.
And some guys like it better because they can see the court better. Mike Breen said he loves being in the action on the court, but it actually is a better view of the game because fans stand up, you miss stuff in the corners, whatever. When you're courtside, it's better. Sometimes it's a better view of the court from up above.
Yeah, I think that's the story of Vin Scully is on top of Fenway, running around on the roof, trying to get to see, the sport. I think you might have been calling football even.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right. Yeah.
It's just that.
Yeah.
Those guys always adapt. It is kind of funny though, as they learn live. Like I was watching, I think, ESPN baseball game the other day, and just because the bat and ball contact is so much louder, you get this response like, "Oh," and then you see the guy routine fly ball. Like,
right.
"Oh, never mind."
Yeah. I wonder how that plays out on the field. Like with having fans in the stands, it's kind of muffled the sound, right? When a guy hits something, and then you don't get the fan reaction and all that. So, but these guys are used to playing from before they could walk, basically. So,
Right.
I think they just sort of seamlessly can move from 55,000 people to 0, and not really make a big deal out of it. I mean, did you
So,
see that throw that Mookie Betts had the other day? Did you
oh
see
my
that?
goodness, it's
I had never
ridiculous.
seen a throw like that in my life. Oh my God. That was unbelievable. The guy literally put the entire width of the stadium.
Yeah,
That was crazy.
no, it was crazy, and a great throw at that. I mean, he threw it however far, 300 and something feet, and it was not a perfect throw, but I mean, by
Yeah.
2 feet from a
Nailed the
perfect
guy.
throw,
But he
nailed
nailed
the
it.
guy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I wanted to ask you about the podcast too. So, will
Mhm.
you be doing concurrent? You have the Legends of Sport side of it. Will you be doing
Mhm.
those in addition to the other?
Well, I'm only going to be doing Legends of Sport. It's only one podcast, but we were doing a series called Legendary Photographers within the podcast releases. So we were coming out with a regular guest on Tuesdays, and we were coming out on Fridays with Legendary Photographer. We put that one on hold. That's going to come back after the 16-week block is over. And we're in week 5, I think,
Mhm.
entering into week 5. So yeah, I have a bunch of people I want to talk to. I love talking to other photographers. I just love it. But that takes a lot of work on my producer's end to do 2 podcasts a week, and for me as well. Plus, I don't really know what my workload's going to be like when I get down there, what my schedule is going to be like. So I didn't want to overload myself. In fact, I'm actually recording like 3 podcasts this week to have 1 or 2 in the bank that kind of ease into the situation in Orlando once I get there.
Who are you dying to talk to though once you get there? I mean, obviously you said Mike Green, but who else is like I've got to make sure I get this person?
Well, we're not talking to players. Legends of Sport is not really about active players, quite frankly. I mean, if they want to bring me LeBron James or Anthony Davis or Kawhi Leonard, I'll take them, But that's not really our focus. Our focus is to talk about what's happening in sports in the moment, but with a Legends perspective.
Mhm.
So, Mike Green is a legend of broadcasting, but he's still working. He's still going to be down there doing his thing. But I wanted his perspective before he got there as to what he thought it was going to be like based on his, millions of years of experience. Now we probably will hopefully talk to a couple of the key coaches that are still involved in the playoffs by the time we get there. Hopefully a couple of executives from those teams, just be as relevant as possible. And then I have my new colleagues now at LA Times who are resources for me. Tanya Ganguly is there, Andrew Greif is there, Dan Woke is there, and then the columnists who are back here in LA. I can draw their knowledge, Bill Bashke and Arash McCarthy and other great writers like Brad Turner. So we're going to constantly kind of get their perspective as well as the guest of the week, let's say, who can add some perspective to what's going on right now.
Nice. Yeah. The other question I wanted to ask about the photographer side of things, are there going to be other photographers there, or is it just you and your crew?
Well, it looks like on the MB side, it's going to be just us. I think there's by the time Nat and I get there, there'll be 4 of us, maybe 5 of us there. I know that they are allowing in photographers in a pool situation of the major media, and I'm not sure how that's going to continue once I get down. I'm assuming it will continue, but that's a different category of credential. So we have to quarantine. We're going to be as close to the players as allowed, which is not that close, but at least we're down in the floor area. But the non-quarantine media have to be at a different part of the arena that's higher up from a different perspective. So, it's all about safety, health safety, and for the players and for all of us, but for the media as well, right? Because we don't want anybody to get this horrible virus.
Of course. Yeah. What inspired this idea? Like, did you come up with this, or did someone pitch you on it?
Legends of Sport, the podcast.
No, just doing the inside the bubble form of it.
Oh, well, I mean, I was just I was asked once the NBA decided to do this bubble format. I was asked by my boss if I was interested, and made it very clear that I didn't have to go, and if there were concerns, whatever, that I could graciously bow out. And gave a choice basically of which segment I wanted to be part of. But it's kind of clear that he wanted Nat and I to be there for that third part. I had a little bit of thought about it. I talked to my wife about it. It is a big, huge commitment. 7 weeks is a long time to be away from home.
Yeah.
But I haven't worked in 5 months, basically. So the handwriting is on the wall there as well. And I need to get back to work, not just financially, of course, but I just missed it so much. It's the longest I've ever gone without shooting a game in almost 40 years.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Like you're a Hall of Famer because you take pictures.
Exactly. I'm not a Hall of Famer because I'm sitting home on my couch, Although there probably is a Hall of Fame for that too, I would think. But.
Oh well, there's a second career for you then. So when we look at all of the podcast stuff that you've done so far, what stands out? Like, what have you learned from all of this? I mean, you've got such unique access to all these brilliant people that you're talking with and to and about everything. What have you picked up? Because when you and I first talked, you were like just talking about getting going on this thing. It was
that was a while ago. That was like maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So now we're in our third season. I think to date I've done about 90 podcasts, which is amazing. And the thing I've learned, quite frankly, is that everybody's got a starting point. I love finding out when that moment in somebody's life, when that light bulb went off, or some mentor or some opportunity or decision was made. It's so interesting. I'm thinking of so many guests right now, but I was thinking of Kirk Gibson, and when I talked to him, and he was this all-American football player. He was destined to go to the NFL. He happened to also play baseball, and it was his football coach at Michigan State that said, what, I think you'll have a longer and better and more, viable career in baseball, and everybody's got that story. Everybody has that moment. And I love that. And then I love, especially the people I don't know. It's fascinating for me to research, and my producer and researcher, Veronica, and I spend a lot of time researching guests, especially the ones that I'm not familiar with, which are super fun, to get to know people. And then, you get to know them through the research, and then you actually have them in front of you, and God willing, in the studio, which we used to do. And, I'm just fascinated by people's lives and journeys and ups and downs. Lately, I'm more fascinated about the downs than I am about the ups, quite frankly, and how people have dealt with that.
Yeah, I mean, that Kirk Gibson is an example of that. You have these pinnacle moments, and now he's, battling a disease. The other thing too about Kirk Gibson that's interesting is before he hits that home run in '88, his last 3 World Series at bats, like they were home runs. I mean, he it's just granted it's from '84 to '88, but he had a really good World Series with the Tigers, and then steps up one swing, and and then basically doesn't swing a bat for another. I mean, healthy for another 18 months. Just that one shot.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the Robert Ory of baseball, big shot Bob, it's amazing. Some guys rise up. They rise up to that occasion, and they relish it. I have Jerry West on this week, and just finished reading his book, and he lived for that. He lived for that moment. We know a lot of guys who, in all areas of life and business and sports. Kobe was like that. Michael Jordan was like that. That's what separates the good from the great.
It's interesting too, because whoever's on the team has likely been that person at some point in their career. But then you elevate, and all of a sudden, I'm not the guy that's supposed to take this shot. It really
Yeah.
is Kobe,
Yeah.
and Kobe gets to decide, like, no, I'll kick the ball over to you. You can take that shot,
Yeah.
and
Sort of like Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan, I
yep.
mean, Steve took that shot, the shot of his life, went in, they won that game, went on to win the championship. But if Michael hadn't deferred to him, and it was selfish, who knows? Maybe Michael bricks the shot. They don't win the game. They don't win the championship. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. The timing of Kobe's unfortunate passing and everybody else in the helicopter as well, too,
Mhm.
is such that, we had this big moment and then it was instantly, pushed behind with the pandemic. But you
Yeah.
guys worked together, you collaborated, you knew the
Mhm.
man. How has that been for you? I mean, with all the other stressors piled on top, have you even had a chance to grieve for your friend?
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, no news to you or anybody who's watching this, that 2020 has totally sucked from
Yeah.
top to bottom. I mean, my year started with my dear friend, mentor, boss, David Stern, in a coma, and died, I think on January 2nd. And then 3 weeks later, this horrific shock of an accident that still can't get my head around 6 months later. To answer your question, no, I haven't grieved. I'm kind of one of these delayed reaction kind of guys that I kind of deal with the business at hand, that what needs to be done like right now in a crisis. I've always been that way from a little kid to having kids. Like, my kid injures himself, like, okay, what do I have to do? He's got to go to the emergency room or whatever the hell it is, and then I'll fall apart later, And there have been moments. I mean, I'm sitting here, in front of me behind the screen. There's 20 pictures of Kobe on the wall because I have to constantly be looking at him and reminded what he meant to me. And I'm just incredibly, I can't even express how grateful I am to him for bringing me into his world. But the fact that we were able to do this book together, and that I've been told so many times that this book is the connection, is the thread to him and his legacy. Book is written in his own words. It's unbelievably gratifying and humbling. So I'm glad we had that experience, that I had that experience with him, and that now it really carries on his message in his own words, not somebody else's words. It's from the Mamba himself. And I constantly go back to the book, and I remember putting the chapters together. I remember him challenging me, I don't know if there's a stronger word, to find pictures to complement the text that he was writing. The whole process was an eye-opening, amazing experience. So, thank God I had that. And yeah, I miss him every day. I mean, everybody I talk to on the podcast, we all have a story, a memory. Some of them we share together, but some of them were very private, and people were very open about sharing those memories. So, and I'm thankful to have, quite frankly, this format, this platform of the podcast to continue the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, that continued conversation's a big part because, like you gave me a copy of the book when I recorded with you and signed it, and I thought, oh, it'll be great when I get a chance to have Kobe sign it because there was tons of time, but there wasn't time,
No.
and it didn't happen. And it's I've picked the book up frequently and kind of thumbed through because obviously it's well done and Kobe's words are powerful, but that book has become something bigger now, at least in my mind, And then you look at, like, he won the Oscar around the same time. I mean, these are like his latest things that he had crowned and done, and with things were really looking not up, but just like it was like, wow, what else is he going to get done if he's winning Oscars and writing these incredible books?
Yeah. And he had so many things planned. Front and center, was to really promote the sport of women's basketball through his daughter and through his efforts with her and her team, and then the NBA. He was like an incredible ambassador. And, that personal attention and connection is gone, right? But his message carries on. And, look at how now the WNBA is embraced across the board by all the male players and the media and everything else. What he was able to accomplish and is being continued now. That's a beautiful thing.
What are your thoughts on there being a mixed league? Where it's just, like whatever 5-on-5, and you have some mix of male and female players. It seems like we're ready for this.
Wow, that's an idea I never even thought of. I think I don't know if you can get away with a league like that. Quite frankly, I think it's more like a sort of a reality show format. It would be fun. I mean, the NBA has experimented with this. I forgot what they call it, but this Legends, this mixed thing of two male players and a female player, I think, and it was like a skills contest thing. That was always fun. I loved, like, Magic and Lisa Leslie and a current Laker would play, the thing and compete.
Yeah.
That was cool. But I don't know about a league. That would be cool to see, because some of these women, I'll tell you, man, they're gonna give these guys a run. And and I think, why don't we put that together? Let's, after this, you and I think we'll put that together.
I think it's a great idea. Like, okay, so do a tournament, and maybe it's masters class, maybe it's retired players, whatever. Get Hortensia out there dunking on people if she still can, or
but
it's just it seems like an idea that's ready to happen, and mixing whoever and whoever together in a 5-on-5 format. I think it's doable.
Can you see the whole league that, like,
you'd have to see if it had legs,
with the schedule and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if that could happen.
Yeah. Maybe a senior league. Maybe that's what it is.
But of all the sports, you would pretty much think basketball and maybe soccer could pull that off, right?
Yeah.
So, an interesting idea.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, why not in general? Like, they do it in tennis. It seems to work there.
Right.
So,
hey, if Mike Tyson can come back at 50 whatever and fight Roy Jones in a couple of weeks, anything's possible.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Those two guys in their 50s fighting.
Well, if there were going to be two guys doing it, those are the two guys. I mean, Oscar De La Hoya maybe could be one. I follow Oscar. I follow Sugar Ray Leonard, and these guys still in shape, man. I mean, they're not going to beat a 25-year-old, but you put them in the ring with somebody their age, and they still got the desire. They're still ripped. They're still, they can still bring it. I mean, it's frightening almost to watch some of Tyson's Instagrams of him training for this thing, because he looks like the Iron Mike from 25 years ago.
Boy, terrifying.
But I think it's fun. I don't think they're going to embarrass themselves, quite honestly. I really don't. I think it's, if you're expecting to see the 23-year-old Mike Tyson, that's not what you're going to see. But you're going to see flashes of that. You're going to see, obviously you're going to see the desire and the drive and the competitiveness. So it's fun. It's novelty for sure, but I think this was well thought out. And
well, we need some novelty right now too. We need.
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to put together a Legends of Tennis event, Legends of Sport. In addition to the podcast, we also produce events and have had some great discussions about that. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Give us the real quick rundown on what restarting the clock is for those folks who are like, yeah, I definitely want to check this out.
Well, restarting the clock was really our kickoff of our partnership with the LA Times. And it's a 16-week block of weekly podcasts, each week having a theme of loosely around what's going on in the bubble. The first 3 weeks, the first 2 weeks, the teams hadn't arrived yet, and then teams started to arrive. And I'm talking to fellow journalists who are down there, cohorts at the LA Times, as well as legendary athletes, executives, broadcasters, people who can give a perspective on how they feel things will go there, how things are actually going in the moment, some projections as we start getting into playoffs, as the playoffs get narrowed down, when they get closer to conference finals, what that's going to look like. So we're going to talk about legendary for example, legendary upsets when we get to the first round. So I'll have Ralph Sampson on talking about that incredible legendary upset of Houston. Houston did over the Lakers in '86 in the first round, right?
Yeah.
So, that's going to be fun talking to Ralph about that. But then relate that to what's going on in the first round, if there are any surprises, down in the bubble. And then when we get to conference finals, of course, we'll be talking about legendary rivalries in the conference finals, Lakers and San Antonio, or Boston and whoever, you can almost pick a team in Boston that they had a rivalry with. And then once we get to the finals, same thing. We'll have legendary coaches on who have won multiple finals to talk about this year's finals, but also, related to their experience in the final they coached in. So it's fun. It's a different slant, it's a different perspective. I bring a lot of experience too, because I was, at the last 37 NBA finals. So, I can bring my own personal perspective, and a lot of the time I'll have a relationship with the guests that we share, which is really cool. That's with Derek Fisher. I had him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And of course, I was there for all of Derek's championships. I was there for the 0.4 shot. I was there when he and Kobe were rookies together, and when Derek left and then came back. So, it's really a first-hand account on my part. It's not from the outside looking in; it's really the inside looking in.
Yeah. Any teams that you like in particular, given the format change?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there are teams I'm intrigued about, quite frankly.
Right.
I mean, as we speak, Toronto, I think, is surprising a lot of people. Everyone thought they were dead in water when they lost Kawhi, but you can't discount any team, first of all, that has Kyle Lowry in it. I mean, that guy is ruthless, and Nick Nurse proved to be one of the elite coaches in the league. And I'm just singling them out, but they have a great squad. But I'm intrigued by teams like Philly, which I don't really get to see very often. I see them on TV, but I think I got Philly maybe twice this season. In the West, teams like Utah, fun. I'm excited to see how Denver might do. Denver's kind of a dark horse here. Of course, we got the Lakers and Clippers, and I'm knocking on some wood here that we all want to see a Lakers-Clippers conference final, which, I've been wanting to see for my entire career. Yeah. So that would be amazing.
Yeah, a Lakers-Clippers conference final. It's too bad they couldn't play at the Staples Center, but, we'll go on there. Looks like Andrew got stuck. We'll give him a second here to unstick himself here. Oh, there you are. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, I was just saying the Staples Center. It's too bad we couldn't get that to happen there.
Yeah, that would. Well, look, it's not happening this year. So
yeah. All right. Well, if I get Andrew back, we'll continue. Let me just.
I don't know if that's you or me, but
I don't know. I'm going to blame you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Man, my internet service sucks over here, and if Spectrum is listening, it sucks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, who knows? Either way, listen. I won't keep you any longer. It's been fantastic. Everybody should definitely, first off, get Kobe and Andrew's book. It is fantastic. I really read it all the time. The imagery is great. Like I said, it's way more than a coffee table book because of Kobe's words. And now, given Kobe's passing, it's even more incredible. So definitely go check that out. The link to the book is there in the show, and that'll be in the show notes if you're listening on the podcast side. Definitely listen to Legends of Sport. It's a fantastic podcast. I was listening to it earlier today. I love the Tony Hawk episode, but also check out the stuff that he's going to do with Restarting the Clock and Inside the Bubble, because it's just it's neat to be able to chronicle that experience, man. I can't wait to hear more about it.
Well, thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. Always great talking to you, man. And I'm there for you anytime you want to check in during the bubble thing or whatever. I'm happy to do it. So
I do. I definitely want to check in. I'll be listening. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Take care. Have a good rest of the day.